everyone, my name is Anne Welsh. As many of you might know, I do suffer from sickle cell. Following on from a recent article I released about sickle cell, I did get an overwhelming response from people asking me about how I deal with it and how sickle cell does affect my day-to-day life. I'll be taking you through some of my questions and answers I've received from you guys, and hopefully this will help you in your own day-to-day dealings with sickle cell. One of the questions I did receive was about children and sickle cell and how this affects families. I will start with my own personal experience. When my mom first told me that she found out I had sickle cell, I could say it was very unpleasant because at that time in the 80s, there wasn't much known about sickle cell and its condition around the world. But I think now, in this day and age, we are so lucky and so fortunate that there's so much research that's being done about sickle cell that having a child with sickle cell is no longer a burden because you could foresee, you could read about it, you could read in various articles on how to deal with it. But the key thing I always tell people, like myself, basing it on my own life experiences, is always to look after that child, because that child needs special care in the sense that they will need to be looked after, they will need to be hydrated, they can't be kept too hot and they can't be kept too cold. So you always have to understand the child needs, especially when the child is much younger. Always make sure you're always in touch with your doctor and go for your regular checkup and drink the necessary medicine that's been recommended by the doctors as well. One of the questions I received was a parent asking me that they have a 3-year-old who's recently been diagnosed with sickle cell, and how do you communicate this to them? I would say 3-year-old is quite a young age to communicate this to a child, and it would take a lot for that child to really understand what you're trying to say. So rather than you try to break it in a massive language, why not take baby steps and say, you have a condition which is called sickle cell, and this condition affects you in this way. It makes you have pains when you play too hard. So I think that do not scare that child, because everyone with sickle cell can be different. Some people have sickle cell and have never been in hospital in their lives. Why some people have sickle cell and they're always in hospital. So we always depend on how this child feels. But the most important thing when you're addressing this with a child, make sure they do never feel different. One of the things I respect my parents for from day one was that they have always made me feel special, and have never ever said to me, oh, you have sickle cell, so that means you're different. So try and integrate the child with as much activity as possible. Try and talk to the child as often as possible, especially when they ask questions. Try not to hide anything from them so that they don't find out from their school friends. And let the child be a child. And if something does come around, take them to hospital immediately. That's how I will handle it. Another question I received is how I avoid crisis in my everyday life. I would say I've managed, I think over the years as I've got older, I've realized that there's certain things I can do and there's certain things I can't do. One of the things which I will share with you guys here is that I can't be in a room filled with smoke, because every time I come out of a room that's being filled with smoke, I always find myself, I'm in a bad crisis. So I've just tried to avoid that situation. Also, I'm very, very particular with hot and cold weather. When it's too hot, I actually do get crisis, and when it's too cold, I also get the same thing. So how do I do this? Is by I literally would avoid anything that would trigger a crisis. If I know going to certain places would trigger a crisis, if I know doing certain exercises or eating certain food would trigger a crisis, I would not do it. I would just have to sacrifice that and say, look, at the end of the day, I want to be healthy. I want to be healthier for a longer period of my life than being unwell. And I just wouldn't do it. So it's just about matter of knowing what's good for you and taking advantage of those things. And what's not good for you, you just don't do it. That's how I've always done it myself.
Okay, and my next question is, a lot of people have read your article and felt touched by what you...
Another question I did receive is a lot of people being touched by the article I've written about sickle cell and how they could work with me on this. I would suggest that if you have any suggestion on sickle cell, it's always good to write to me for now, because at this stage in life, I'm still trying to collect and see how much interest there is out there about sickle cell and how we could all work together. Because even though United Nations in 2008 declared World Sickle Cell Day, June 19, still a lot, there's still a missing gap on people dying from sickle cell. There's still a lack of awareness. There's still a stigma around the illness. So I would suggest people who want to work with me to keep work in your area, work in your community, gather information and send them to me, so we should pile up and get more people to support this disease, because it's still unfair that in this day and age people are still dying or people are still suffering from this illness. So to work with me is very, very easy. I would suggest step one, you go to your community, gather as many information as you can, gather as many numbers of people who have sickle cell. Step two, send me an email. Tell me, Anne, these are people who are looking for our support, and let's all work together and put something together so we could send out to the United Nations. We need more people to do more about sickle cell. We need more research done. We need more medicine out there, and we need more people to stop dying from sickle cell. But I can't do it alone. I need your help. I need us to work together to do this and find a permanent solution for this. Another good question I did get is how I overcome my emotional, psychological, and physical well-being while dealing with sickle cell. I would say that was my biggest challenge, and I would not sit down here before you and lie to you guys and say that I found it easy. The reason being is the emotional side is that with sickle cell you tend to be very emotional, and you tend to, especially when you go to school or you go to your workplace and you're sick one day and the next day you're fine. And then people are reluctant to be your friends because they're not quite sure what kind of person you are, because you could never display your emotion to people. But my advice to this is that over the years you realize that the people who are your friends are your friends. Your community who like you will always love you. So you can't base your life on trying to discover what the world wants you to be. You have to base your life on what you, as someone with sickle cell, can be. And that has always been my breakthrough, by understanding my own emotion. Because initially, it was a big struggle. I wasn't quite sure, where do I fit in this world? How am I ever going to get a job? Because, I might be sick, I might not be sick. Would I be able to do the things they want me to do? But, as I grew up and I understood my own limitations of what I can do and what I couldn't do, then I realized that it's not a problem, that my emotions will only fade away if I just was consistent in what I was doing. Another beautiful question, which I always get asked, is that two couples who are Detroit, who's got married and now are thinking of having kids and worried about what if they have a sickle cell child. Well, that's always a difficult question, because how would you balance love and a child with sickle cell, especially a child you're not quite sure, it's 1 in 4 chance of having sickle cell. And my parents got married and both of them were straight and they had me. But if I always ask my mom the same question, say, if you knew you were going to have a sickle cell child, would you guys still marry? My mom always said to me, look, I love your dad so much, and I don't think I would take anything back, and you've turned out to be a great kid. I would say, if you are both AS and you've realized that you're now thinking of starting a family, I think the biggest thing you have to do for yourself is believe that even if you do have a child with sickle cell, there are hope for us. Look at myself, for example. I have sickle cell and I've got through it. Just believe it will be tough. I won't say it's going to be easy. It will be tough, but just believe and see what you could do, and work together. Work with your doctor from day one to find out first if that child is being diagnosed with full-blown sickle cell. And if that child is being diagnosed with full-blown sickle cell, please, please, please immediately get that child the help he or she deserves. Because from day one, if we're being looked after, if you know we have sickle cell, it's much easier, and it's much easier to handle the condition. So that's my advice to you. Another question I've just received, this question regarding the drugs I used and why I use them. I would say the drugs are a very sensitive issue because I am not a big drug person. So I would say everyone has to everyone's very different. I prefer to use the natural routes, like eating healthy, drinking lots of water. But on a day-to-day basis, I always have to take my penicillin V and folic acid, and this is something I've been taking since I've been a baby. And also I've started taking on calcium as well, and some vitamin B because of lack of sunshine where I live. But I would always say you have to speak to your doctor because everybody's circumstance is different. So people need regular blood transfusions, some people are on hydroxyurea, some people are on various drugs. But I would say the key to any illness is making sure you're eating very healthy as well. Drinking lots of water to flush out all the toxin in us, and just doing baby regular exercise to keep the heart rate going. But in terms of drugs, it all depends on everyone. Circumstances are different. Your doctor might recommend something and it might be good for me, but it might not be good for you. So I would just say speak to your doctor on that issue. So I love a beautiful question we received. Is someone said they're dating someone and they haven't been tested and they're thinking, what if they're both carriers? What should they do? That is a common thing happening now around the world. I've got lots of people asking me the same question because I know during my own time, no one would want to marry me because I had sickle cell. So everyone had that thing in their mind, what if they had a baby with sickle cell? Mum has sickle cell, baby has sickle cell. So people were, I have to be honest, people were reluctant to get together with me. But my advice to couples who really love each other is that I really believe love supersedes everything, because it's not just, people always think it's just sickle cell that is an illness. There are so many other things out there that could affect a child, and sickle cell is just one of them. So destroying a solid loving relationship because you have sickle cell, because they're both AS traits, is not something I would ever advise to any couple. But I will always say, it is difficult. It's not going to be easy. If you do eventually have a child that has sickle cell, it is very difficult. If the child has the bad kind of sickle cell, there are various kinds, but there's some where the child is regularly in hospital. But always make sure your love is solid, your love is strong, and that you've thought about it. But if your love is not strong, really do think about it, because there's no point bringing a child into this world and in the end, you guys end up breaking up because of this child. So think about it. It's something I always say, pray over it and really think about how you think you want your future to be like. A lot of you guys have written in saying thank you for all the good works and me telling you about my own experience of living with sickle cell. I am truly appreciative of this, and I would love to say thank you to you guys back. But I would say this would be an ongoing conversation, and I would advise you to go on my website, which is www.ann-welsh.com. And I would say you'll find everything about me living with sickle cell, how I cope on a daily basis. You could also go from the website, you go to my YouTube link, where I also give in more depth my own experiences from birth to teenage life, to working, to going to school, of living with sickle cell. And I would definitely advise you to keep your heads up, because it's one illness, but there's so many other things out there, and be positive, because every day is a new day, one step at a time. Thank you so much for this. Thank you.